The ranchers and farmers in the small town had all gathered around the old barn, their faces set with certainty. In the middle of the dusty corral stood a dying horse, its once proud frame now slumped in defeat. The horse had been a symbol of strength and beauty when it was younger, but now it was broken, injured beyond what they could fix. "No point in keeping it around," one of the ranchers muttered, shaking his head. "It's just wasting space." The others nodded in agreement, exchanging grim glances. It was true, the horse, once a prized asset, had become an expensive burden. "Put it down," they all suggested, their voices laced with practicality, like they were deciding the fate of a broken tool. But standing quietly in the shadows of the barn was a girl, no older than 14, who had been listening to their harsh words. Unlike the others, she didn't share their resignation. She had come to work on the ranch just a few months ago, and though she was young, she had already learned that there was more to life than simply giving up when things got tough. The girl's name was Anna. She stepped forward, her face determined, yet filled with tenderness as she looked at the horse. "I can fix it," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the group. The ranchers all stared at her, their faces filled with disbelief. "You? You think you can save that?" one of them scoffed, crossing his arms over his chest. "That horse is as good as gone." But Anna didn't flinch. She simply walked toward the horse, her heart beating fast. She had no idea how she would heal the creature, but she knew she had to try. There was something about the horse's eyes, something desperate and hopeful, that made her believe it wasn't ready to give up. The others watched in silence, unsure of what to make of her quiet confidence. Anna didn't answer their mockery or share her plan. She simply knelt beside the horse, brushing its matted coat gently. And in that moment, the girl knew something the others didn't, something that would change everything. Anna spent the next few days at the barn, hardly leaving the horse's side. The other ranchers barely noticed her at first, too busy with their own work to pay attention to a girl who seemed intent on nurturing a lost cause. They watched her in silence from a distance, shaking their heads. It was almost as if she didn't understand that horses like this one, broken, weak, and too far gone, couldn't be saved. But Anna didn't care what they thought. Every day, she fed the horse small portions of food, slowly gaining its trust. She worked carefully, tending to its wounds, brushing its fur, and talking to it, softly and calmly. She didn't have much experience with injured animals, but she had always believed that love and patience could heal even the deepest wounds. One afternoon, as she sat beside the horse, one of the ranchers approached her. It was Tom, an older man who had worked with horses all his life. He was known for his blunt demeanor and hard-won wisdom. "You're wasting your time," Tom said, his voice thick with skepticism. "That horse isn't worth the trouble. You're just putting yourself through more pain." Anna looked up at him, her eyes steady. "I don't think it's a waste," she said quietly. "I think it just needs a little time." Tom sighed, shaking his head. "Time's not gonna fix what's wrong with it. I've seen plenty of horses like that, injured and broken. You think you're gonna turn it around? I'm telling you, it's hopeless. It's better to let it go." Anna didn't respond. She wasn't about to argue with him, but deep down, she knew she couldn't let the horse go. There was something inside her that refused to give up, not just on the horse, but on herself, too. The next day, as Anna worked quietly in the barn, she noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. The horse's breathing seemed less labored, its eyes less distant. It was small, but it was a sign, something was changing. Anna felt a surge of hope, but she knew she had to keep her focus. There was still a long way to go. That afternoon, as she stood by the barn door, watching the sun set, Anna overheard the ranchers talking again. This time, they weren't as quiet. "Just let her do her thing," one of them said. "Can't hurt anything, I suppose. But she's just delaying the inevitable." Anna's heart sank as she overheard their words, but she didn't let them deter her. She had already made up her mind. She wasn't going to listen to their doubts. She had seen it in the horse's eyes, the same spark that she felt inside her. It wasn't just about saving the animal, it was about proving to herself that sometimes, the most unlikely things could be saved, if only you believed in them. The next few days became a blur of work. Anna's hands were raw from tending to the horse, and her body ached from the long hours she spent by its side. But the more time she spent with it, the more she began to see improvements. The horse's coat started to look healthier, its posture slightly stronger. Even the ranchers noticed, though they were hesitant to admit it. "You're making progress," Tom said one day as he stood by the fence, watching Anna work. His voice was less dismissive now, but still uncertain. "But don't get your hopes up. There's still a long way to go." Anna nodded, but inside, she felt a quiet confidence building. This wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about believing in herself. She had come to this ranch feeling like an outsider, unsure of her place. But with the horse, she felt a connection, a purpose. She was determined to keep going, no matter what. As the days turned into weeks, Anna began to realize that her bond with the horse had deepened in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't just a one-sided effort, the horse was beginning to respond to her care. It would nuzzle her gently with its head, as though it were thanking her, and it would follow her around the corral, slow but steady. Still, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. The ranchers were watching her closely now, and though their comments were less harsh, their skepticism still hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. But Anna didn't let it bother her. Every day, she saw the smallest signs of progress, and that was enough. Then one morning, Anna arrived at the barn to find the horse standing, its head raised high and eyes bright. It was the first time she had seen it on its feet without support. She couldn't believe it. The horse was standing on its own, something she had never thought possible just weeks before. The ranchers, who had been watching from a distance, slowly began to gather around her. They had seen the change, too, and there was no denying it anymore. Anna's efforts were paying off. "This is unbelievable," Tom finally said, his voice filled with reluctant admiration. "I'll be damned, you might just have done it." Anna didn't reply. She simply smiled to herself, her heart full of quiet satisfaction. The horse wasn't out of danger yet, but for the first time, Anna truly believed it had a chance. Anna continued her work with the horse, and the improvements, though small, were starting to show. The animal's coat gleamed more brightly now, and its once limp legs seemed to gain strength each day. But despite the progress, there was still a long way to go, and Anna couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something that could truly make a difference. One day, as she sat beside the horse, gently brushing its fur, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning, she was surprised to see a woman standing at the entrance of the barn. The woman was older, her weathered face hinting at a life spent in the company of animals. She wore a long coat, and her eyes had an intensity that reminded Anna of someone who had seen much and understood even more. "I've been watching you," the woman said, her voice calm but firm. "You've been working with that horse like it's your own, but you're not doing it the way it needs to be done." Anna stood, a little taken aback by the woman's directness, but she wasn't offended. She'd grown used to people doubting her, but the way this stranger spoke, there was something different about her, something knowing. "Who are you?" Anna asked, her curiosity piqued. The woman smiled, her eyes twinkling with something like humor. "I'm someone who knows a thing or two about horses. You're doing your best, but there's more to it than just kindness and patience." Anna felt a flash of irritation. She'd been working tirelessly, and yet here was this woman, this stranger, telling her she wasn't doing enough. But before she could speak, the woman held up a hand, as if to calm her. "Let me show you," the woman continued. "Come with me. I'll teach you what you're missing." Reluctantly, Anna followed the woman outside to a small, weathered shed at the far side of the barn. Inside, the woman had various supplies, many of which Anna had never seen before. A collection of herbs and ointments lined the shelves, and the walls were covered with old photos of horses, each one showing a different type of injury and a different approach to healing. "This is what you're missing," the woman said, pulling down a few jars of herbs. "You're feeding the horse, you're cleaning it, but you're not addressing the deeper issues. You need to treat both its body and its soul. That horse isn't just injured. It's been broken down over time. You have to rebuild its trust, its confidence. And that takes more than just care, it takes real healing." Anna stood silently as the woman explained, absorbing every word. The woman spoke with a confidence that made her question everything she thought she knew about caring for an animal. She had learned about basic care, but there was a world of knowledge she hadn't even considered. "What do you mean by healing its soul?" Anna asked, her voice soft with skepticism. The woman gave a knowing smile. "Horses, like people, have hearts. They feel pain in ways we don't always understand. You can fix their wounds, but you can't fix their spirit unless you know how to communicate with them in a way that goes deeper than food and shelter." Anna nodded, her mind racing. There was so much more to this than she had realized. The woman taught her how to mix the herbs into poultices, how to soothe the horse's fears with gentle words and calm touch. She explained how horses reacted to energy and movement, how every interaction with them had to be filled with trust. For the next few days, Anna worked tirelessly with the horse, applying the woman's methods. At first, it seemed slow, the horse hesitant, but Anna persisted. She could feel the difference in the way the horse responded, subtle, but undeniable. The horse was beginning to trust her more. As the days passed, Anna noticed the horse standing taller, moving with more confidence. Its spirit, once dull and broken, seemed to light up in small, unexpected ways. But what amazed Anna most was the bond that was growing between them. She could feel the horse's gratitude, an unspoken connection that filled her with warmth. One evening, after a long day of work, Anna was sitting with the horse, stroking its neck gently. She looked up to see the woman standing at the entrance of the barn again, watching her with a knowing smile. "You've done good," the woman said, her voice filled with quiet pride. "You've made more progress than I expected." Anna's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and gratitude. She had come so far in such a short amount of time, and it was all because of this unexpected mentor. The woman had given her something she didn't even know she was missing, a deeper understanding of not just how to care for the horse, but how to help it heal from within. "I couldn't have done it without you," Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. The woman nodded, her eyes softening. "Sometimes, the help we need comes from the most unexpected places," she said. "And you've done what no one thought possible. Don't forget that." The woman didn't stay much longer, just long enough to offer a few final words of encouragement before slipping away into the night. Anna watched her go, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the guidance she had received. As she turned back to the horse, she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't alone in this fight anymore. She had the tools she needed to heal, and the horse had proven that it was worth saving. No longer just a broken animal, it was a symbol of everything Anna believed in: resilience, patience, and the power of love to heal even the deepest scars. Over the following weeks, Anna's bond with the horse deepened. She spent long hours working with it, slowly but surely regaining its trust. It was as though the animal understood that it wasn't just being healed physically, it was being understood on a level no one had bothered to reach before. But as the horse continued to improve, the ranchers grew more and more curious. Some of them, like Tom, still weren't convinced, but others began to notice the subtle transformation in the horse. It wasn't just about the horse looking healthier, it was the way it started responding to Anna. Where it had once been hesitant, it now stood firm and steady. Where it had once shied away from touch, it now welcomed her presence with quiet trust. Anna began to feel a quiet sense of pride. She had set out to save this horse when no one believed it was worth saving, and she was proving them wrong. But even as the horse showed remarkable improvement, the doubts from the ranchers remained like a heavy fog in the background. They weren't openly cruel anymore, but the skepticism lingered in their eyes. "You're making good progress," one of the younger ranchers, Jake, said one afternoon, watching Anna work with the horse. "But don't get ahead of yourself. It's not out of the woods yet." Anna nodded, grateful for the recognition, but inside, she could feel the pressure building. She knew this wasn't just about saving the horse anymore, it was about proving to everyone, including herself, that she was capable. That evening, as Anna sat with the horse, brushing its coat, she reflected on the changes she had witnessed. The horse, once so broken and fragile, was starting to stand taller, its posture straighter than it had ever been since the injury. It had even begun to nuzzle her affectionately as she worked. A quiet contentment filled Anna's heart. She had done this. She had healed the horse in a way that no one thought was possible. And yet, as she gazed at the animal's eyes, she knew the work wasn't over. There was still a mountain to climb, but at least now the path ahead seemed clearer. Anna's thoughts were interrupted when she heard the sound of footsteps approaching from behind. It was Tom, the rancher who had been the most vocal about the horse's fate. He stood in the doorway of the barn, looking out at the horse. "You've done more than I expected," he said, his tone begrudging but honest. "I'll give you that." Anna stood, a little surprised by his words. Tom had always been one of the more cynical ones, quick to dismiss any effort that didn't fit into his own vision of things. To hear him acknowledge her progress felt like a small but significant victory. "Thank you," Anna replied softly. She didn't need his approval, but it still felt good to hear it. Tom nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "But it's not over yet, is it? The horse still has a long way to go." Anna looked at the horse, her eyes soft with affection. "I know," she said, her voice steady. "But we're getting there." Tom didn't say anything else. He simply turned and walked back toward the main house, leaving Anna to continue her work. But his words stayed with her long after he left. As the days went on, Anna felt the weight of the rancher's skepticism more than ever. Even as the horse showed more and more signs of recovery, they continued to doubt. Their approval wasn't something Anna could earn easily, it wasn't enough to simply prove the horse could heal. She would have to prove herself worthy of their respect as well. One afternoon, as Anna was brushing the horse near the far end of the corral, she heard voices in the distance. It was the ranchers again, gathered by the barn, discussing something in low tones. Anna couldn't make out their words, but she could tell from their body language that something was brewing. "What do you think they're talking about?" Anna asked, turning to the horse, though she knew the animal couldn't answer. The horse nickered softly, as if responding to her, and Anna smiled. It was moments like these, when she could feel the quiet connection between them, that made her believe in something bigger than herself. It wasn't just about proving a point, it was about doing something good, something that would leave a lasting impact. When the ranchers finally approached, Tom was the first to speak. "We're thinking about taking the horse for a little trial run," he said. His eyes were still cautious, but there was something else there now, something like curiosity. "A trial run?" Anna repeated, unsure of what he meant. "We want to see if it's really recovered," he said. "We're going to give it a test. See if it's ready for the next step." Anna's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. The ranchers were finally ready to give the horse a chance. But the test would be brutal. They would push the horse harder than it had been pushed in months, perhaps even longer. And if it failed, it would mean the end of any hope for the horse's future. "I'll be ready," Anna said, her voice steady despite the nervousness creeping into her chest. "We're ready." The ranchers nodded and left, leaving Anna and the horse alone once again. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what was to come. This wasn't just about the horse anymore. It was about her. The day of the trial run arrived with an air of unease. Anna could feel it in the barn, in the way the ranchers stood quietly by the fence, their eyes fixed on her and the horse. The atmosphere was thick with skepticism, as if they were waiting for the inevitable moment when the horse would falter, and Anna's hopes would come crashing down. The horse stood quietly in the corral, its coat now glossy and strong. Its once sunken eyes were bright with a renewed energy that Anna could hardly believe herself. But even with the horse's progress, she knew today was crucial. If the horse couldn't perform, all the hard work she had put in would be rendered meaningless in the eyes of the ranchers. Tom, as always, was the one to speak up first. He walked up to Anna, his face unreadable. "You sure about this?" he asked, looking at the horse with a doubtful gaze. "We've got a long way to go. You think it's ready?" Anna met his gaze firmly. "I know the horse can do it. I believe in it." Tom grunted, not fully convinced but not willing to back down now. "All right then. Let's see what it's got." Anna felt a lump form in her throat as she led the horse to the starting line. Her heart pounded in her chest, every step of the horse's hooves mirroring the rush of her own pulse. The other ranchers were watching intently, some with their arms crossed, others whispering to one another. Anna could sense the judgment in their silence. This wasn't just a race, this was her moment to prove herself. The race was simple, a straight run across the field, with the ranchers looking for speed, strength, and stability. Nothing extraordinary, just a test to see if the horse could handle the pressure. But to Anna, it felt like the world was riding on this single moment. As she mounted the horse, she felt a sudden surge of confidence. The horse stood tall beneath her, strong and steady, as if it knew the stakes just as well as she did. She gave a gentle nudge with her heels, and the horse began to move forward, slowly at first, then faster. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. The horse's gait was smooth, its step steady, its body showing no signs of the weakness that had once plagued it. But as they neared the halfway point, the horse stumbled slightly. Anna felt her heart drop into her stomach. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was enough to set off a wave of anxiety. The ranchers were watching closely, their eyes narrowing. Anna urged the horse forward, trying to calm both it and herself. The pressure felt unbearable. The horse was capable, it had to be, but was it enough to silence their doubts? Could it prove to them that it wasn't just a broken creature, but one with the power to rise again? The day of the trial run arrived with an air of unease. Anna could feel it in the barn, in the way the ranchers stood quietly by the fence, their eyes fixed on her and the horse. The atmosphere was thick with skepticism, as if they were waiting for the inevitable moment when the horse would falter, and Anna's hopes would come crashing down. The horse stood quietly in the corral, its coat now glossy and strong. Its once sunken eyes were bright with a renewed energy that Anna could hardly believe herself. But even with the horse's progress, she knew today was crucial. If the horse couldn't perform, all the hard work she had put in would be rendered meaningless in the eyes of the ranchers. Tom, as always, was the one to speak up first. He walked up to Anna, his face unreadable. "You sure about this?" he asked, looking at the horse with a doubtful gaze. "We've got a long way to go. You think it's ready?" Anna met his gaze firmly. "I know the horse can do it. I believe in it." Tom grunted, not fully convinced but not willing to back down now. "All right then. Let's see what it's got." Anna felt a lump form in her throat as she led the horse to the starting line. Her heart pounded in her chest, every step of the horse's hooves mirroring the rush of her own pulse. The other ranchers were watching intently, some with their arms crossed, others whispering to one another. Anna could sense the judgment in their silence. This wasn't just a race, this was her moment to prove herself. The race was simple, a straight run across the field, with the ranchers looking for speed, strength, and stability. Nothing extraordinary, just a test to see if the horse could handle the pressure. But to Anna, it felt like the world was riding on this single moment. As she mounted the horse, she felt a sudden surge of confidence. The horse stood tall beneath her, strong and steady, as if it knew the stakes just as well as she did. She gave a gentle nudge with her heels, and the horse began to move forward, slowly at first, then faster. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. The horse's gait was smooth, its step steady, its body showing no signs of the weakness that had once plagued it. But as they neared the halfway point, the horse stumbled slightly. Anna felt her heart drop into her stomach. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was enough to set off a wave of anxiety. The ranchers were watching closely, their eyes narrowing. Anna urged the horse forward, trying to calm both it and herself. The pressure felt unbearable. The horse was capable, it had to be, but was it enough to silence their doubts? Could it prove to them that it wasn't just a broken creature, but one with the power to rise again? With a deep breath, Anna steered the horse around a sharp bend, pushing it harder. The horse responded, pushing through the fatigue with determination. Anna could feel the connection between them, something powerful and raw, a bond forged through days of hard work, patience, and care. This was their moment, and they couldn't let it slip away. The final stretch was the hardest. The horse's legs wavered under the strain, its muscles trembling with effort. Anna felt herself holding her breath, urging the animal forward with everything she had. As they neared the finish line, the horse gave a final push, its body surging with strength, and they crossed the line together. Silence hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Anna's heart pounded in her chest, her entire body frozen in place as she waited for the rancher's verdict. Finally, Tom stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Anna held her breath. "Well, I'll be damned," Tom muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. It did it. The other ranchers were speechless, some nodding, others just staring at the horse in awe. Anna's chest swelled with pride, but there was no time for celebration. She had done it, but it wasn't over yet. There were still plenty of hurdles to clear, still more to prove. But for that brief moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of her victory. She had pushed the horse to its limits, and together, they had proven that strength came from more than just physical prowess. The horse had overcome its fear, its pain, and its doubt, just as Anna had. As the ranchers began to murmur among themselves, Anna dismounted, gently patting the horse's neck. "You did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The horse nickered softly, as if it understood. Tom came up beside her, his face softening for the first time. "I have to admit, I didn't think it could do it," he said quietly. "But you were right. That horse has more heart than I gave it credit for." Anna smiled, her heart light with relief. She hadn't just proven the horse's worth. She had proven her own. But there was still more to come. The ranchers may have seen this as just one test, but for Anna, it was the beginning of a whole new journey. She could feel the challenge ahead, the need to keep pushing forward, to keep proving that the horse, and herself, were more than anyone had ever thought possible. In the days following the trial run, Anna felt as though she was walking on air. The horse's performance had exceeded expectations, and the ranchers had started to warm up to her. There was a newfound respect in their eyes, something that had been missing before. The horse, once deemed a lost cause, had not only survived, it had thrived. But despite the positive change, a lingering sense of doubt gnawed at Anna. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. There had been a few moments during the run when the horse had shown signs of weakness, the slightest falter in its step. It was nothing major, but Anna had learned never to ignore even the smallest sign that something was wrong. She continued her work with the horse, checking its legs for soreness, feeding it the right mix of food and supplements, and making sure it had plenty of time to rest. But something inside her told her that the worst wasn't over yet, that the horse's full recovery was still far from guaranteed. Then, one fateful morning, disaster struck. Anna arrived at the barn early as usual, her mind focused on the day ahead. She had a feeling that today would be another step forward, another victory in their journey. But as she approached the stall, something felt wrong. The air was still, too still. There was no sound of hooves or the usual whinnies of the other horses. She pushed open the door to the stall, and her heart sank. The horse was lying on the ground, its legs stretched out in front of it, its breathing shallow and labored. Anna rushed to its side, her heart racing. It was the same horse she had worked so tirelessly to heal, the same one that had shown so much promise just days ago. But now, it looked weak, fragile, like a shadow of its former self. "Come on," Anna whispered frantically, rubbing the horse's neck, trying to rouse it. "You can't give up now." The horse didn't respond. Its eyes were distant, glazed over, and it barely shifted when Anna applied gentle pressure to its side. Panic surged in Anna's chest. She had seen the horse's strength before, the way it had pushed through its limits, and now it was as though it had given up completely. She hurried out of the stall, her mind racing. She needed help. She needed someone who knew more than she did about horses, someone who could tell her what was happening. As she ran to find Tom, her hands shook. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not after everything they had been through. Not after the horse had shown so much promise. When Anna found Tom, she barely managed to catch her breath as she explained what was going on. "It's not moving, Tom. It's not getting up." Tom's face went pale as he listened, and he didn't hesitate. "Get the others," he ordered. "We need to take a look at it, see what's going on. It's possible that the injury was worse than we thought." Anna nodded, her heart heavy with dread. She led Tom back to the barn, and soon, the other ranchers arrived. They gathered around the horse, their faces grim. Anna stood back, watching, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. The horse wasn't just physically weak, it was emotionally defeated. After a few minutes of examination, Tom straightened up, looking at Anna with a serious expression. "The injury, it's deeper than we thought. It's not just the leg. There's something internal that's been bothering it." Anna felt her world tilt. The words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. She hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared for it. The horse had been showing signs of recovery, hadn't it? This wasn't supposed to happen. "Is it too late?" Anna asked quietly, her voice barely a whisper. The thought of losing the horse, of failing it now, was too much to bear. Tom's face softened, and he placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's not too late," he said, though there was a sadness in his voice. "But it's going to take more than we thought. We might have to go back to square one, work through some things we missed." Anna nodded, though her heart felt as though it had dropped into her stomach. She wasn't ready to give up, not yet. There was no way she could give up on the horse now, not after everything they had been through together. But as the ranchers went to work, assessing the situation, Anna stayed by the horse's side. She couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of guilt and uncertainty. Had she missed something? Had her love and care for the horse been enough to save it? Or had she ignored something critical that had led them to this point? The horse lay motionless, its eyes closed, and for a moment, Anna felt a wave of despair wash over her. She had done everything she could think of, she had believed in the horse, had trusted in its strength. But now, it seemed as though all that work might have been in vain. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Anna sat alone in the barn, her back against the wooden wall. The horse's fate was still uncertain, and she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was losing a battle she couldn't afford to lose. But as the stars began to emerge in the night sky, a quiet determination settled in her chest. She wouldn't give up. Not yet. Not when there was still a chance. There was more to this than just physical healing, there was something inside the horse, something Anna had to help awaken again. If only she could find the key to unlocking it. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty, but Anna never left the horse's side. The ranchers worked tirelessly, trying everything they could to diagnose the source of the horse's internal struggle, but no one could give her a clear answer. The horse had become withdrawn, barely responding to anyone except Anna. It was as though it had lost its will to live, retreating further into itself. Anna, however, refused to give up. She spent every moment she could beside the horse, speaking softly to it, gently rubbing its coat, and offering it food and water. But she knew it needed more than just physical care. The horse's spirit was shattered, and she was determined to heal it, not just the body, but the soul. One evening, as the sun sank low in the sky, casting long shadows across the barn, Anna sat quietly next to the horse. She had tried everything, the herbs, the treatments, the special care, but none of it had made a real difference. The horse's body might have healed somewhat, but its heart, its spirit, remained broken. That was when she realized something. She had been focusing so much on healing the horse physically that she had forgotten to focus on the one thing that mattered most, its trust. She needed to remind the horse of the bond they shared, to reignite the strength they had built together. Only then could it find the will to recover fully. The next morning, Anna made a decision. She would try something different. Instead of continuing to force treatments, she would take the horse outside into the open fields, away from the barn, where it could feel the wind, the sun, the earth beneath its hooves. Maybe, just maybe, being outside would remind the horse of the freedom it once had, the joy of running wild. She led the horse to the gate, her heart beating in anticipation. The horse stood still for a moment, its head low, eyes filled with doubt. But Anna gently nudged it forward, speaking softly, urging it to follow her. The first few steps were hesitant, the horse dragging its feet as if unsure whether it could trust her. But Anna didn't push it. She walked beside it, offering words of encouragement, letting the horse take its time. As they reached the open fields, Anna stopped, letting the horse stand still for a moment. The breeze rustled the tall grass, and the wide expanse of the field stretched before them, untouched and full of possibilities. She stood beside the horse, her hand resting lightly on its neck, and waited. For what felt like hours, they stood together, side by side, in silence. Anna's thoughts were calm, her heart open. She knew that the horse needed to find its own strength again, to remember what it was like to run free. She just had to help it see that it could. Then, without warning, the horse took a single step forward. Anna's breath caught in her throat, but she didn't move. She simply stood there, watching as the horse, slowly at first, began to move across the field. It wasn't a run, not yet, but it was a start. The horse's steps grew more confident as it moved forward, its head held higher, its body moving with a steadier rhythm. Anna walked beside it, a small smile on her face. She didn't say anything, just let the moment unfold naturally. As they continued across the field, the horse's energy seemed to return. It moved more freely now, the tension in its muscles easing, its movements becoming smoother. Slowly, the pace quickened. And then, with a burst of energy, the horse broke into a full gallop. Anna's heart soared as she watched the horse run, its hooves pounding the earth, its mane flying in the wind. She could feel the power, the freedom, the sheer joy that the horse had once known, and it filled her with a sense of peace. The horse was no longer the broken creature that had first arrived, it was alive again, whole in body and spirit. The sun began to set as they slowed down, the sky turning a brilliant orange. The horse came to a halt, breathing heavily, but its eyes were bright, filled with life once more. Anna stood beside it, her hands resting gently on its neck, her heart full of pride. The horse had come back to life, not just because of the treatments or the care, but because it had found its strength again. And Anna had found the key to healing it, not through force or medicine, but through patience, love, and the trust they had built together. As she led the horse back to the barn, she felt a sense of fulfillment that she had never experienced before. The journey had been difficult, filled with setbacks and doubt, but she had never wavered. And now, standing beside the horse, she knew that nothing at all, was impossible when you believed in someone or something enough to fight for it. That night, as Anna sat by the horse, her mind drifted to the future. There was still more work to do, more healing to come, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a quiet certainty in her heart. She had done it. Together, they had done it. And no matter what happened next, she knew that this horse had more heart than anyone could have imagined. Days passed, and the horse's recovery seemed nothing short of miraculous. The bond between Anna and the horse had grown even stronger, a partnership forged through their shared struggles. Every morning, they took to the fields, Anna riding the horse through the open expanse, watching as it grew more and more powerful. Its strength had returned, its spirit reignited. The horse was no longer just a creature of survival, it had become a symbol of perseverance and resilience. But as the ranchers saw the horse's recovery, they began to feel a renewed sense of skepticism. They had witnessed the initial transformation, but now they wanted more. They wanted to see if the horse could truly live up to its former glory. They wanted to see it perform at the level it had before its injury, to prove that the horse was truly whole again. Anna knew the pressure was mounting. The horse had already surpassed their expectations, but now came the true test. It wasn't just about its physical recovery, it was about showing the ranchers that the horse was capable of what they had once deemed impossible. One afternoon, Tom approached Anna with a serious look on his face. "We're giving the horse one last trial run," he said, his voice cautious but firm. "We're going to push it harder this time. It's time to see if it can really compete." Anna's stomach tightened, but she nodded. "I understand." Tom wasn't asking for something easy. The ranchers wanted the horse to prove its endurance, its speed, its strength, all the qualities it had once been known for. The trial would be more intense than anything the horse had faced before. It would be the ultimate test of everything Anna had worked for, and of everything the horse had fought for. As the day of the trial approached, Anna felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She had spent so much time believing in the horse, but now she wasn't sure if it could truly meet their demands. She knew it had come a long way, but could it handle the pressure? Could it prove to the ranchers, and to herself, that it was whole again? On the morning of the test, Anna saddled the horse with a steady hand, her movements slow and deliberate. She spoke softly to it, offering reassurance as she led it out to the starting line. The ranchers were already gathered, their faces serious as they prepared to watch the horse's performance. Tom stood at the front, holding a stopwatch. He had the look of someone who was both hopeful and doubtful, uncertain whether the horse could truly meet the challenge ahead. Anna felt the weight of his gaze, but she didn't flinch. This wasn't just about impressing the ranchers, it was about proving the horse's strength, about showing that everything they had been through wasn't for nothing. She mounted the horse, feeling its muscles ripple beneath her. It was strong now, no longer the fragile creature it had once been. The horse was ready, and Anna felt a sense of calm settle over her. She knew it had the potential to succeed. The question was whether it could handle the pressure. The race began, and Anna urged the horse forward. At first, it moved steadily, gaining speed as it moved across the field. The ranchers watched, their eyes narrowing, evaluating every move. Anna could feel the tension rising in the air. Every step the horse took, every movement, was under scrutiny. The horse was performing well, but Anna knew it had to push itself even harder. As they neared the halfway point, the horse began to slow, its breath coming in labored bursts. Anna's heart raced as she urged it forward, pushing it to the limit. The horse responded, its legs moving with a renewed urgency as it fought to keep up the pace. But as they reached the final stretch, the horse wavered, its steps faltering for the first time in weeks. Anna's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The final test. She could see the finish line ahead, but the horse was struggling. It wasn't the same as before, the weakness had returned, not in its body, but in its spirit. "No," Anna whispered to herself. "We can't give up now." With everything she had, she leaned forward, urging the horse to push through. "Come on," she whispered urgently, her voice filled with hope. "We're almost there." The horse stumbled, its legs shaking under the strain, but it didn't stop. With a final surge of strength, the horse found its second wind and galloped forward, its hooves pounding the earth with a powerful rhythm. The finish line was within reach. Anna's heart raced as she clung to the reins, her mind focused on nothing but the horse beneath her. With one last push, the horse crossed the line. Silence hung in the air for a few long moments before the ranchers erupted into applause, their faces full of astonishment. Anna's chest swelled with pride, but she couldn't take her eyes off the horse. It had done it. They had done it. Tom walked over to her, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I'll be damned," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. That was something else. Anna dismounted and stood beside the horse, her hand resting gently on its neck. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The horse stood tall, its breath heavy but steady, its eyes clear and proud. It had proven itself, not just to the ranchers, but to Anna as well. It had shown that, no matter the odds, it could rise above its struggles and overcome every challenge. And in that moment, Anna realized that the true victory wasn't just in the race, it was in the journey they had taken together. They had both proven that strength wasn't just physical. It was about heart, about perseverance, and about never giving up, even when it seemed impossible. The days following the trial were filled with quiet triumph. The ranchers, now fully convinced of the horse's recovery, began to treat it with a new sense of respect. But it was more than just the horse's physical transformation that had changed, it was the lesson they had all learned about strength, resilience, and the power of belief. Anna spent her days with the horse, no longer worried about proving anyone wrong or meeting expectations. She had already done that. What mattered now was the bond they shared, the deep, unspoken connection between them. The horse was no longer just an injured animal to be fixed, it had become a partner, a friend, someone who had fought as hard as Anna had to overcome the odds. One morning, Anna stood in the barn, watching the horse graze peacefully in the corral. Its body was stronger than ever, its spirit renewed, and yet Anna knew that the journey wasn't really over. The horse had come back from the brink of death, and in doing so, it had reminded her of something important, that the greatest strength often lies in the moments when we refuse to give up, no matter how dark things seem. As she watched the horse move gracefully across the field, Anna's mind drifted back to the moment when the ranchers had first deemed the horse worthless. It had been an easy decision for them, practical, even. The horse was broken, and they were quick to label it beyond repair. But Anna had seen something in the horse that they hadn't. She had seen the spark of life that refused to fade, even in its darkest moments. Anna wasn't just fighting for the horse. She had been fighting for herself as well. The horse's journey had mirrored her own, from a place of doubt and uncertainty to a place of strength and confidence. She had learned something about herself through the horse's struggles, that persistence and love could heal even the most broken of things. And perhaps more importantly, she had learned that it was okay to believe in the impossible, to keep going when everyone else had given up. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, casting a golden light over the barn, Tom approached Anna. His face was more open now, his usual skepticism replaced by a quiet admiration. "I've been thinking," Tom said slowly, "about everything that's happened. You've done something remarkable here. That horse, it's not the same one we saw weeks ago. And you've made it happen." Anna smiled softly, her heart swelling with pride. "We made it happen." Tom nodded, his eyes reflecting a new respect. "I never would have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. But I've learned something from all this too." Anna raised an eyebrow, curious. What's that? Tom paused for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. That sometimes, the things we give up on too easily are the ones that have the greatest potential. You showed me that. Anna's smile widened. It wasn't just me, she said. It was the horse, too. We both had to fight. Tom chuckled softly. I suppose you're right. As the days turned into weeks, the horse continued to thrive, and Anna's bond with it grew even stronger. She had saved it from death, but in doing so, it had saved her as well. The horse had taught her that there was no such thing as hopelessness, only moments when we must choose to push through the darkness. That no matter how many times we fall, there is always a chance to rise again. The ranchers, now fully on board with Anna's approach, began to treat the horse like the champion it had become. They acknowledged her efforts, and the once doubtful ranchers began to offer their help and guidance, eager to learn from the girl who had changed their views. They, too, had been reminded of the importance of faith and determination. One evening, as Anna stood in the barn, looking out at the horse grazing contentedly in the corral, she reflected on everything that had led her here. She had faced doubts, challenges, and setbacks, but in the end, she had won. Not just for the horse, but for herself. She had proven that strength wasn't just about muscles or speed. True strength came from the heart, the ability to keep going when the world told you to stop, the courage to believe when no one else did. And sometimes, the most beautiful victories came from the battles that no one else believed were worth fighting. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its warm glow across the field, Anna knew that the lessons learned from this journey would stay with her forever. In the end, it wasn't the horse that had been saved, it was both of them. And together, they had shown the world that no matter how broken we may seem, there is always a chance to rise again.